Three, two, and one. Good morning, Cardinals fans. Welcome into a little Monday morning therapy here on the Morning Scramble. Before we get into this one, let me introduce you to the Breakfast Club. Kyle Odegaard, Jody Jackson, Felipe Corral here with you. Good morning, guys. Hope you brought your coffee because we need a little therapy session here. Let's get right into the main dish. The Cardinals' 3-game winning streak is snapped. They lose to the Dolphins 34-31. And looking back at this game, you guys, it was exciting. It went back and forth, but watching them ultimately lose in the end, it was a dagger for this Cardinals team. Really just a lot of missed opportunities. Kyle, what stood out to you in this loss?
Yeah, you're right, Lisa. It seemed like a really well-played game overall, two talented teams, and I just feel like this was a game that definitely could have gone either way. I mean, both teams had really good moments, and when you look at the NFL compared to something like Major League Baseball, there's so much fewer games, and when you lose one this close, it can hurt you in the standings and when you're trying to push for the playoffs. So I think the big thing is the Cardinals lost a close game, even though they easily could have won it. And then you just hope it doesn't have huge ramifications down the line.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Lisa, this was a game that, I think a lot of people felt like this team could make a statement, they did beat Seattle. That was a statement for sure. Beating the Niners early on in the season felt like that as well. But, it was there for the taking. It was on the home field. I think a couple things that bothered me, and like Kyle said, it came down to the end, razor thin margin here between an up and coming Dolphins team. And, Tua played great. And Kyler, to me, he played even better. Kyler had a rating of 150 in this game. He did everything. He passed for over 275. He had 4 touchdowns, 3 passing, 1 running. I mean, the problem for me was the defense couldn't hold up their end, and obviously special teams at the end with the missed kick. It is a team game. I think that's why we saw the frustration from Kyler at the end, but the defensive backfield was really depleted, and I hate to make an excuse, but it really was. When I saw Kevin Peterson leave that field, I got very concerned because they were already down a couple of guys, including Byron Murphy Jr. And there it is, just short. And unfortunately, Zane Gonzalez, 11 for 15. It hasn't been a year where he's made those long kicks, and so that's another tough situation. He's got to make that. But the other thing I want to throw out just real quick with the main dish is I heard Jordan Hicks talk about the energy to begin the game that was needed. And I'm a big believer in kind of, however you begin. Once you get into it, it's really what happens at the end. Okay. It was 24-24. They scored. You try to answer. I don't understand it though. I don't understand why there would be any lack of energy at the start of a game. So I don't put the loss on that, but I don't get it. Felipe, I don't know where you go from. I know I covered a lot of stuff right there, but that was on my mind really all evening long.
A lot on your dish, Jody.
Yeah, a lot on my plate.
And you talked about that depleted secondary, and I think Lisa tweeted at me like in the middle of the game, and I think you did too, Jody, just talking about like, Felipe, are you ready to suit up? Like that's how depleted it got, to the point where Lisa really had to suggest, risking my life practically, just to go on the field. And
I believe you, Felipe.
Thank you, Lisa. I feel like you're the only one that's been hyping me up, on the Twitter app, and I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, it's been a rough weekend for fellow Sun Devils, alumni, suffering that defeat on Saturday. And then you mentioned Zane being 11 for 15 and missing that game-winning field goal. So a lot to take in. But one thing that I'll point out is this offense just missed Kenyon Drake. And, Chase Edmonds had a pretty good game, but when you look at those short yardage situations, you miss Kenyon Drake in those 4th and inches, those 4th and 1s, 3 and 1s. And I know we're going to talk about, that being one of our that bites for this game, but we miss Kenyon Drake this game.
Yeah, this loss certainly hard to swallow. So let's get into it, Felipe. Let's get into that bites. Let's have Kyle go first. For you, what bites in this loss?
Yeah, and like Felipe said, mine was the Chase Edmonds 4th and 1 run where he could not pick up the first down, and in that situation, the game is tied, the time is winding down, and if you get a first down there, you're in a really good spot to win this game because you're bleeding clock, you're in pretty good territory where you're close to field goal range, and maybe you score a touchdown on that drive. I didn't look closely enough to see if there was a missed block or what exactly happened, but you're right, Felipe. Kenyon Drake is a bigger back, and sometimes when you have somebody like that, they can have their momentum push forward and get the short yardage stuff. And obviously, a lot of people wondered, should Kyler Murray have had the ball on that play? Kyler Murray had converted a lot of fourth and shorts and third and shorts previously. Anytime you're in a crucial spot like that, the play calling is going to get questioned. And I don't really get into that because you look at a lot of fourth and ones previously, the Cardinals converted. And if you're not going to praise Cliff Kingsbury heavily for that, then you shouldn't criticize him heavily for not converting on this one. I think you're just going to happen, and it was a bad time to have a bad result. But clearly the fact that they did not get that right there, it was a huge difference in the game. Jody, how about you?
Yeah, well, Kyle, let me just ask you about that, because for me, watching this game, Kyler, despite his great numbers and his clutch performance in many situations, he was pressured, he was confused, even near the end. After that call you're talking about, he was hit. You know, he went for it as far as trying to put himself out there to get yardage and get first downs. I don't know. I felt like maybe they didn't want to go to the well too many times, even though maybe you can't go to the well too many times with Kyler Murray running the ball. I just wanted your thoughts on that. And
that,
really, Lisa, Felipe as well, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, it's interesting because they had so many fourth and shorts in this game. You're right. I mean, they ran the speed option early, and then they had the one where Kyler tried going and it didn't work, so he threw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins and got the offsetting penalties. Then they ran the zone read on the next 4th and 1, which Miami played really well, and Kyler Murray just made something happen to get the first down. So I think that probably played into it. If you have 3 or 4 fourth down calls that you love and you've used them all already, do you go back and Miami knows what's coming, or do you try something different? I think that's a great observation, Jody.
And you mentioned so many short yardage situations, and it was tough. It's tough to convert those, even though they've done it. I just want to say on the field goal, though, I don't blame Cliff Kingsbury for going for that. The difference there is you're not going to get it back. Okay. For me, that's why you kick the ball. So people can disagree and people can say, well, he didn't continue with the method and the philosophy. For me, the difference is one is at the end, and the others, it's kind of like you can recover and you should make the kick. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But for me, that bites was the 93-yard drive, specifically the touchdown to Matt Collins, who was not targeted all game. I believe it was Whitaker over there on the coverage. It was a tough situation where, that drive, Tua did everything he could do to stay alive. That's where I think we're all sitting there. If you take your eye off the Cardinals' prize in this game and you look at it as a whole, this was a great matchup of two quarterbacks that were doing everything they needed to do to get it done. And Tua scrambled on that drive, but on that particular play, you're just thinking, you really don't want to give up that 93-yard drive, give up a touchdown there. And for me, that play, that's going to be that bites is kind of zeroing in on that play, because to me as the defense, you just didn't want to let that happen at that point in that game. And it was a battle of two offenses going back and forth. But for me, the D had to find a way to limit that drive to possibly a field goal. Felipe, I don't know. I mean, it was fun to watch these teams going back and forth, but I would have loved to see the Cards defense be able to step up in that moment.
And it's in those situations when you start missing guys like Byron Murphy, Drake Kirkpatrick, Kevin Peterson, even, who left the game with a concussion. I just want to know, I don't know if you guys noticed, Kyle's just, memory of every single play, the starting one, the fourth ones, the PI, and then the 28-yard gain on Kyler. It's just, there's so much. I come on the show and I start, learning from Kyle, his vocabulary, his, exquisite memory. I'm just like, I can't even remember what happened in the first quarter, but
he's just making us look bad.
Checks in the mail, Felipe. I appreciate it.
Flexman. Calm down, Kyle.
But, I think before this game, I tweeted, I have a lot of things to say to Twitter trolls, but before I get to that, I'll get to that bites. It was that 3rd and 1 incomplete pass to Christian Kirk under 2 minutes that eventually led to that field goal miss. And I think, and Kyler alluded to this, but I think we all know Kyler can make that pass, 9 out of 10 times. It was a pretty simple a pass to Christian Kirk outright that led to 4th and 1. And then you start questioning, like, why didn't he go for it? Well, he went for it. And it just frustrates me, Lisa, Kyle, and Jody, because they praise Kingsbury when he converts on the 4th and 1s. Kyler ran for 28 yards, and then they praise him, and then he doesn't convert on 4th and inches on that chase run that you mentioned. And people start, all over Twitter, like, why did he go for it? Why does he do this? His play calling. And it frustrates me when he doesn't go for it and he goes for it. I think the common sense decision to make at that point is to go for the field goal. I mean, there's less risk. It's riskier to go for that 4th and 1. And for people on Twitter to go back to questioning our play call after going for, again, what would be a basic decision for all of us, just frustrates me to see people, the common sense isn't quite there on my Twitter app.
You know how it is, Felipe.
And sometimes I love that Twitter app, makes me laugh. And sometimes I go on there and I just start thinking, like, people I know too, Lisa, it frustrates me. Like, really? Y'all can't. Yeah, the hypocrisy is just so evident. It's so clear.
It's the ultimate armchair quarterback. It's the ultimate, and it's that way in all aspects of Twitter. I mean, really, people criticize every walk of life, and you're like, okay, well, it's easy for you to say now, but you're right. You're right, because there's been so much success on the short yardage. And then, I mean, the call's the call. You got to execute it. Miami, their defense is pretty good. After that first possession, I was thinking, oh boy, forcing the fumble, and I'm thinking, oh man, that did not happen. They really got it together after that moment. That was just one bad play. But yeah, Felipe, maybe do what I do. Sometimes just put the phone down for a minute to take a breath.
It's just sometimes it's hard to comprehend the logic behind people's criticism. But again, it's Twitter. We love our fans. I love the passion. Sometimes, like, go to Kyle so he can tell you the conversion on 4th down that this team has had, and go to Lisa and Jody in terms of what would be the logic decision to make at that point. I mean, you have to go for the field goal. You have to tie a game. It would have been worse if he would have gone for it on 4th and 1 and not even give his kicker a chance to tie the game. And let's say he didn't convert. Let's say it didn't convert on that 4th and 1. Imagine just the trolls would have been multiplied at that point. So, I mean, Cliff's done an amazing job offensively this year. I mean, they're a top 3 scoring offense in the league. So it frustrates me, Lisa.
Felipe, it sounds like you're going to need a little longer therapy session after this.
An extra cup of espresso or something. It's been a rough morning.
I see that. Well, hey, I'm going to get into my That's What Bites. And Jody, you were talking a little bit about it, that fumble on that first drive. To me, coming into this game, we knew that this Dolphins defense was very opportunistic. When you make mistakes, they're going to make you pay for it. That scoop and score, although it was just, it was just the way to start this game for me, that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, uh-oh, here we go. Because coming into this game, we know that the Cardinals are the better team. However, the Dolphins keep finding ways to win games. I believe this is their 4th win in a row for them. They're a scrappy defense. Yes, they give you a lot of yardage. They allow you a lot of points. We saw that in the Rams game. But to allow this to kind of start the pace of the game, and like Hicks said, the energy was lacking, all these things. Yes, the momentum was there. Coming off a Sunday night win over the Seahawks. We have a long bye to kind of relish in it. That scares me, though. I'm a momentum person. Kyle knows that. I was kind of fearful going into this game, knowing like, okay, there's a lot of time here to kind of soak in this. Will they be ready? They said all the right things coming into this game. They, put in the extra work that they were able to have throughout the week. They didn't go anywhere, obviously, due to COVID rules. But it was a long time to sit on that win. And to think that this Dolphins team was able to come in here with a rookie quarterback, just the second start. He didn't do a lot in that Rams game. It wasn't on him to win the game, but we saw what he's capable of doing. And just to give up too many mistakes in this game, starting off with that fumble. Yes, it was one play. Kyler played out of his mind, in my opinion, which makes this loss so much for him. You could see the defeat at the end of the game so much more frustrating for him, because he had such an unreal game, and to be able to, not come out with a win, obviously that's what he ultimately wants. It was frustrating, but for me, that kind of just put a little bad taste in my mouth. I was like, uh-oh, what's coming here? You can't make too many mistakes. And then we saw throughout the game penalties at the wrong time, kind of just shooting themselves in the foot there. But
Lisa, you're totally right. It was not a good first half.
no,
I mean, it wasn't.
I mean, to me, and I said in our post-game show, Kyle can attest to this, that's where, to me, I felt like they lost the game. You can try to play from behind and we had the lead at one point, but it just still felt like it wasn't in our grasp. And you can't allow a team that is so scrappy like that, that's playing with all the momentum, just has it in them to find ways to win. It wasn't the missed field goal to me. Yes, he needs to make that field goal. He'll tell you himself. But it wasn't that. It shouldn't come down to that to tie the game at that point. So that first half was ugly. We know that. But there were some bright moments in this game, as we've been chewing up on the bad spots in this. Let's go into our rise and shine players of the game. There were a lot of players that did step up in this one and had some remarkable catches, sacks. We'll get into all that. Kyle, who you going with though?
Person you just mentioned, Kyler Murray. Yeah, I mean, obviously the fumble and the resulting touchdown is a big deal, and the Cardinals were in a quick 7-0 hole. But the way Kyler Murray played after that, to me, was just phenomenal. He was great through the air. The stuff he did with his legs was unbelievable. I mean, he's quickly becoming one of the most electric players in the NFL, maybe at this point the most electric. I think Lamar Jackson is in that conversation, but Kyler Murray has arguably outplayed Lamar Jackson this season, and I think this game was really a showing of what he can be. Even though you faced a defense that was number one in the NFL in scoring defense, when Kyler Murray was on, they couldn't slow him down, and I think that's a testament to how good he is and how good he can be moving forward. So the fact that he leads the NFL in yards per carry at 7.1, and he showed what he can do with his arm. Like Jody mentioned earlier, a 150 passer rating is just incredible. He averaged more than 10 yards per pass attempt, which is really, really good. So they lost this game, and that's bad. But the way Kyler Murray played, to me, was the biggest storyline for moving forward, and I think that's a great sign for the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. How about you, Jody?
Yeah. I mean, MVP talk, I think, has to be there for sure, if it wasn't already. For me, guys, my rise and shine player of the game was one of those targets that we saw there with Kyler, which is Christian Kirk. Tried to do a nice little drawing here with the Christian Kirk name. All right. Now, great job. He's I had to outline it with the extra Sharpie. Did not bleed through, by the way. Anyway, I won't go there. No comment. Just had to laugh though about all the Sharpie marketing. Really. But Christian Kirk again, that is a money throw and a catch. That connection has been lethal for the opponent. Here it is. Oh, just a beautiful throw. And that's becoming, I guess if you're the opponent at this point, you're looking and saying, when are they going to dial that up? If it's there, and obviously he got behind the coverage, and the Dolphins couldn't do anything about that. Perfect throw, great catch right there for Christian. And he had another one later on in the game, which was obviously another big play. I think it was a 35-yard gain, and the one they didn't connect on, that wasn't a good throw. It was right there again, but I think we're going to see this other throw to Christian, and he's such a deep threat. He's there in the passing game. Took the punishment there on the. I was a little nervous a little bit there at that moment when he got hit, but he got right back up, kept going, and big game for Christian Kirk in a game where DeAndre Hopkins only had the 3 catches, and. I'm really not sure why that was. I would assume that the defense was blanketing DeAndre, but they went to Fitz. They went to different targets. They went to the tight ends in this one, Daniels and Max Williams with catches. And so Christian Kirk was a huge part of this. He's one of many targets, but he's becoming a very reliable target for Kyler Murray. And Felipe, just want to, again, like Kyle said about Kyler, this is a bright spot. You know, you take this, you move forward. The pain of the loss really stings. And wow, 123 receiving yards in this game. But you look at this connection as a really positive thing for this team going forward, Felipe. How about you?
Jody, I think Kyle tweeted over the weekend. You know when DK Metcalf was saying, "My name is what was it like, DK, not DJ."
Not DJ, yeah.
And Kyle tweeted, "My name's Kyle, not Kyler." And
I just did it. I know.
it's a prime example. I mean, and at this point, I wouldn't mind being compared or confused for Kyler, Kyle. I mean, I don't know about you, but if someone's
Yeah,
comparing
there's
me to
worse
Kyler,
people
I'm
to be
like,
confused to.
yes, I just had 4 touchdowns today. Confuse me with Kyler how you want. But for me, it's the little things, Jody, Kyle, and Lisa. For me, it's Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, he didn't have the sexiest stat line. I mean, looking here, 4 catches, 54 yards, but it's the little things. It's extending certain plays with yards after catch. It's diving for that first down. And it's the fundamentals. It's when the play breaks down, who do you go to? You go to Larry Fitzgerald. You saw that and one specific play. And not to pick on anyone or guys like Andy Isabella, but there's a specific catch that Isabella had where instead of going forward, he tried to evade the defender and he went backwards. And then you see Larry Fitzgerald and you see experience come into play where Larry's actually trying to go forward and extend certain plays to get that first down, get that offense in position to score into the red zone or something like that. And to be a young receiver on this team must be a blessing to work with Larry Fitzgerald day in and day out. And you're starting to see it in Christian Kirk, certain plays where he's getting tight coverage on them and he goes to the ball or his route running to get behind coverage. So I mean, if you're a Keyshawn Johnson or a Andy Isabella on this team, to be learning from Larry Fitzgerald must be a blessing. And it's those little things that are going to propel you to have, better success going forward. And I think a prime example of that has been Christian Kirk. I mean, 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games. And year and after year, you're starting to see Christian Kirk really excel in the little things, the route running, the, creating space, the going forward, getting that extra yardage. And it's only going to be a matter of time before hopefully you see guys like, again, Andy Isabella and Keyshawn Johnson, getting on that boat and being, factors in this offense. Big shout out, Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, there's no denying the Fitz magic that he brings. It was something that we talked about on the pregame show. Just he has the ability to get the crowd involved, even though there was about 4,200 there. He didn't have a lot of targets in this first half of the season. We were saying, when is he going to get the ball more? Just to see him more included in this offense, much needed. And yes, it will get all the other guys going as well. So my Rise and Shine player of the game is Marcus Golden. Welcome back, Marcus Golden. He had his first sack back as an Arizona Cardinal, but it was just so good to see him back in his Cardinal red and the energy that he brings on the field. He was pumping up the players after plays. I mean, guys that he obviously maybe just met or just getting readjusted into this team again and pumping up the crowd. I mean, he would make a play and the crowd would just go crazy. So definitely a fan favorite. Look at that energy that he has. It was just kind of like deja vu or a little throwback, I would say, seeing him get a sack. And then of course, Josh Morrow get a sack. So he's just obviously much needed. His presence was felt right away. He would have had 2 sacks actually, if one didn't get negated with a penalty. Look at him go. That's the Marcus Golden we know and love. Boom. I love him. So it's so great to see him back here. And yeah, this pass rush obviously going to need continued help. We'll see what happens this week. If Devon Kennard can get back here off the COVID-19 list, obviously, we're still going to be without Chandler Jones for the rest of the year, but having him, Kennard, Reddick off the edge, guys like this who can still bring the energy and make this an effective pass rush. They're going to need it going forward with the teams that we have set to face here in the second half. So obviously it was, it's hard to swallow this one, guys. They had a chance to be 6-2 at top of the NFC West. We talked about the implications going into this game and how big it was should they be able to get a win. But we have Kyle Odegaard here to bring home the bacon. Close this one out for us, Kyle. What's sizzling on your mind?
Yeah, and you're right, Lisa. If the Cardinals won that game, everything would have been great because they would have been in first place in the NFC West. And I think at that point tied for the best record in the NFC. But I also don't feel like all losses are created equal. And the Cardinals gave up a defensive touchdown. The Dolphins hit 2 field goals from 50 yards or more, and the Cardinals missed one from 49. So a lot of things went the Dolphins' way on among that, and it's not necessarily predictive of what's going to happen moving forward. And I think the bigger deal is that Kyler Murray showed that he's a star in the NFL with that performance. So it was bad to lose, but the fact that you lost in kind of a wonky way to me means that the potential for this team is still there to go on a nice run. I think the playoffs are still a very real possibility. And if Kyler continues to play like that, like Jody said, he might get some MVP buzz, and the offense is going to play well, and this team is going to be successful in the last half of the season.
Yeah, you play the way that you did against the Seahawks, and expectations are raised. I mean, if you look going into this season, if you would have said at this point the Cardinals are 5-3, we would have taken it. But you see these flashes, the potential that's here. And in the game that we saw yesterday, I heard something on the radio when they said like Tua outdueled Murray in this one. No, that was not the case at all. It was a beautiful display of two quarterbacks, yes, going back and forth, but it wasn't Tua outdueling Murray by any means. Murray didn't lose this game. And to know that we have him as the quarterback of this team going forward, I had people texting me, family members, bandwagoners, and they were saying, it's just fun to watch this team. They weren't as disappointed maybe as us who, dissect every single thing about this game. But they're just like, man, I am so excited about this team. And I'm over here in my feels and I'm like, we just lost. We could have won this game. We could be, win that Detroit game. I think a little bit differently, but I had some people that were like, gosh, I am so excited for the future. So to kind of have that perspective, Kyle, you're right. It's not all lost in this one game, and they can still obviously make a big push here in the second half.
I mean, this Bills game is going to be huge. I mean, when we're sitting here a week from today, what are we going to be saying? Are we going to, Josh Allen is not going to match, try to run around like Kyler Murray. I don't think he can move a little bit now. But defensively, they're going to have to shore up a few things after what I saw yesterday against the Seahawks. So this is going to be real interesting, guys. And before you head into a part of the schedule where, you're on the road, maybe in bad weather, things like that, I think this is another really big game. There's still, we're at the midpoint only. There's a lot to be played. So, Lisa, Kyle, you mentioned it. I mean, this was a big game. It would have been nice to have, but 5-3 is still just fine. It's going to be, where do the Rams, what do the Rams and Cardinals do the rest of the way? For me, that's a big key in this one. And maybe even the Niners, don't count them out, even though they're decimated with injuries.
I think it's also important to note, one, Lisa, talk that talk, do your thing, girl, don't hold back. But secondly, the Seahawks lost, the Niners lost, the Rams are on bye. When you look at it from a divisional standpoint, this loss, it sucked to experience, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. I mean, everyone basically lost in the division this week, so it's not going to have that much of an impact. And I think they're still first in the division in terms of wins and so forth. So these next two games, I think, are going to be statement games. You play Buffalo, which is obviously a great team, and then you're at Seattle on Thursday Night Football. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned is right. Next on course is the Bills, like we saw, but thank you guys for making me feel a little better here on this Monday morning and joining us here. Be sure, fans, to click that like button and subscribe to our official YouTube channel so you can get all of our exclusive coverage on your Arizona Cardinals. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.